This is the Fantasy Football Game Plan, where we talk about fantasy football and the NFL.
All right, what a crazy day in the NFL. This is nuts. Usually at the trade deadline, it's kind of slow, but not today. There's all
Mhm.
kinds of stuff going on. Wow.
Moving, moving parts for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of it is fantasy players, like, not the linemen and, there's the one DB that got traded, but for fantasy, that's sort of insignificant. But we're talking about fantasy players, guys that touch the ball are getting traded all over the place.
At the off season, a lot of juggling happened with players moving. So I just wonder if this is just the adjustment to that juggling that they did, that teams were doing, and so people are just trying to be like, it worked for people in the off season. Let's see if we really turn the pot here and see what if it could work for us, because obviously there's scoring problems in the NFL. Case in point, Las Vegas last weekend. like so maybe this is like kind of like changing up the dressing room without getting rid of coaches, because there's no real coaches on the hook right now. So maybe it's they're looking at personnel. Exciting
Yes.
times at NFL 2022, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, this will stir things up a bit. So I'm going to just list some of the guys that were traded and let you weigh in on them and sort of keep track of what I'm saying in case I forget anybody. Okay. So Chase Edmonds got traded from the Dolphins to Denver. So now the Denver backfield is even messier than it was before with Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon and some other people. I mean, I don't know. There's
Boone.
three guys there now. I know we don't like talking about Denver, but this is what happened today. So the next thing happened just now. Naheem Hines got traded to Buffalo, and Zach Moss went to the Colts. And why that's interesting to me is Naheem Hines is sort of the same player that James Cook is to me. But then you have Zach Moss, who's a between the tackles runner, going to the Colts. So I'm thinking that Jonathan Taylor is quite injured and they're probably going to sit him. And this might be a huge pickup, not for this week, but maybe down the line.
Well, he wasn't getting much offense in Buffalo, so it's a good move for his career, Moss, that's for sure. But I think he's rostered in many leagues already, so he would be a tough grab. But if he isn't, he's definitely could pick up that slack.
Right. And then Jeff Wilson goes from the 49ers to Miami to reunite with his old coach, McDaniels, who knows how to use him. So I guess, Chase Edmonds getting traded out of there creates a spot for the number two running back. So now it's Jeff Wilson. So he might have some value, and he also might be available in a lot of leagues.
I think you're right there. I think a lot of people either dropped him when McCaffrey came in, or just left him because he wasn't really doing anything in San Fran this year. So that's definitely one of the better pickups for this week if you're looking at it, if you're needing a running back.
Yeah, and maybe this week it might not be huge, but over the next month or so, he could really develop and get a lot of touches because we know that Mostert doesn't stay healthy,
Yeah.
right?
It's funny how Mosert's there too, another ex 49er is in their backfield.
Yeah, yeah. So just to finish up a couple of one, so Chase Claypool gets traded from the Steelers to the Bears, who have been playing well lately. That could work out for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully Claypool lives up to his potential. He's been kind of sleeping for since he broke out as a rookie. So not saying that quarterback needs to improve in Steel Town, but it kind of needs to improve.
Right. And we love Chase Claypool because he's from just down the road here from
Abbotsford.
Abbotsford, BC. So hopefully that's going to work out for him. And I'm kind of liking what the Bears have been doing lately with Justin Fields. But the last one I want to throw to you to expand a bit on this trade, because this is huge. TJ Hawkinson goes to Minnesota.
I know. Maybe that was always the deal because they traded down from Minnesota in the draft to get Williams at the 18th spot. So maybe they did a side deal where they're like, trade us down, and then by the time draft day comes out, we'll get you Hawk. Now, I don't know what's going on with that. That's kind of like a big stir in the pot. I think he was a tight end from the old regime, from Patricia's regime. So they're kind of been cleaning out house. Their defense actually that started the last 2 weeks have been all Brad Holmes picks. All the old people are out. So maybe this is just one of those things too, where they're just like, he doesn't fit the mold. But he's had problems of catching the ball and standing on his feet. Like it's almost comical. He's been doing better over the last 2 weeks, but he's one of those guys that catches the balls and falls. So his yards after catch are pretty horrendous. He did make a good effort last week to extend a play. He didn't get the first down. He needed to make 4 and he extended to get 3, and it showed some gut. But maybe he kind of knew he was on the way out. That's a big stir up for sure, especially being in the division.
Yeah, interdivision trade. That's huge.
Yeah, but like I said, they got the trade down to get Jamal Williams in the draft. So was that kind of like an understatement? Is my conspiracy theory.
You're talking about to get Jamison Williams, the receiver?
Yeah, they traded Minnesota's spot to get him.
Okay. Well, I hope we see him, because I listened to you earlier this season and I've had him stashed, Jamison Williams, on my roster, hoping for something. Maybe this makes a little room for him coming up here. I don't know. But I'm still hoping, waiting towards the end of the season, we're going to get to see this player, because I'm excited to see what he looks like.
Yeah, TJ, though, with Cousins is going to be a great connection. I think Minnesota has really upped their value. They probably were finished first in the NFC, as that trade really does make them a pretty high-powered offense. Because who do you cover?
Yeah.
You have Matheson, which we could talk about this week, to pick up if he's not already taken as a number 2 running back.
Alexander Madison.
Yeah, and then you have definitely one of the top receiving cores.
Yeah.
And then now you throw in this tight end, which is just ridiculous. So
yeah. Okay, well, we should get into it, because it's hopefully there's a lot more to talk about here, but we got to keep it short if we can. So it's a big bye week this week. The teams that I have listed for being on a bye are the Browns, the Cowboys, the Broncos, the Giants, the Steelers, and the 49ers. That's going to create a lot of holes, and people are going to be busy on the wire trying to fill some spots, I think.
That's good. There's a lot of fantasy players out there. I lost my week last week due to having a couple major players on my roster on a bye. So it's good to see it depleting elsewhere, because last week was a tough one. Let's start off like quarterback. There's already right now a lot of quarterbacks that we could pick up. I think a solid pick this week, like I mentioned last week, would be Tyler Heineke from Washington. I think he's a solid someone to pick up. And then Jimmy G, if he's still out there and you need somebody, he is still reliable and someone that can get you to it. So if you don't need a quarterback this week and you need one next week, pick him up, because you could probably pick him up for almost nothing.
Yeah, 49ers are on a bye, so he can help you down the line. But in terms of this week, the quarterback that I have that's been looking good, surprisingly, is Andy Dalton's putting up some fantasy numbers. So I think he'd be available in a lot of leagues. And I don't think he should be your starter for the rest of the year. I don't even know if Jameis will come in, Jameis Winston, and take the job away from him. But for this week, if you're stuck, I would take a look at Dalton. And then the other guy that I have for QB is Marcus Mariota. He's sort of up and down, but he's kind of consistently putting up points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
not anyone to keep on your roster, right. That's for sure.
Yeah, these guys are all temporary fill-ins. Although Heineke, like you said, might hold down the job for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. So he's an interesting guy, and he'd be definitely the top guy. I'm with you on that one. Okay, running backs, there's a lot to talk about because of all these trades and stuff. Just to review, you and I have been on Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard for a while now, and they're both good pickups. Hubbard's been hurt, but if you can get him, he might be out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Kenyon Drake for the Ravens. He's not the most talented player in the world, but they've still got all kinds of injuries at running back on that team. Gus Edwards and the like. And Kenyon Drake's the only guy who's been able to stay healthy. So maybe Justice Hill might even be worth it if you're really desperate this week for a running back. Those two guys from Baltimore, I'd look at them.
Yeah, the running back is getting pretty slim right now. When I was kind of searching over the weekend and into today, there's two people that I have identified. I don't know what they're going to do for you as a fantasy, but if you do need somebody in a flex position, both by the name of White. So Zahir White from the Raiders, because they need a offensive kick in the butt with a goose egg from last weekend, so he could see more touches. And Rashard White from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as he does get 40% of the carries, and he does do some breakouts and he is catching balls. So the two Whites, Zahir or Rashard, those are two options that I come up with this week.
Okay. Well, I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is a guy because he got traded today to the Dolphins. He's going to get some work. What do you think of Isaiah Pacheco from the Chiefs? They say he's going to be the starter now.
Sure.
You don't believe it, or?
Oh, no, he's a great running back. He's also the return guy. When they get to the goal line, they like to find Kelsey, even if it's a half yard away from the end zone. It's a very tough position, so that's why I kind of give you this kind of reaction.
Okay, I've got a different read on him. I've got him as being a big back, physically big, and much bigger than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I'm thinking that's why, for a running back, he runs hard. So I think he gives them a little bit of a different element. I agree with you that they're looking for Kelsey at the goal line, but down the stretch, playoff wise, they've got a good bunch of matchups for the running back coming up here. I know it's a three-way split in Kansas City, but as we said, fantasy managers are kind of desperate to find running backs right now, especially with all these buys. So I don't know. I'd take a look at Pacheco. I drafted him. I think he's a great player. I've been holding on to him, hoping he would become the starter. He has now. He got the start, go the week before the bye week, and he got 43 yards rushing, led the team. They're coming off a bye. Sometimes rookies coming off a bye, they kind of flash, especially when they're kind of projected into that starting role. So I'm saying keep your eye on this player because I think he could be something. And then there's one more running back I wanted to throw out there, and it's Kyren Williams from the Rams. He's still not active, but he's coming off IR and he's practicing now, and I think he's going to play this week, and the Rams need a running back.
Yeah, they do. They need lots of things.
Yeah. Yeah, Cam Akers did not get traded today, which I thought he would. So now he's still there. So, I don't know. They're going to start using him again after saying that he was out. He's been a healthy scratch. They just don't like him as a person or a player, or I don't know what the deal is. But they don't seem to like him, but now they're stuck with him. Yeah.
But what I do know what to say is that the Seahawks are quite a surprising team in the NFC West.
Yeah.
But San Fran is creeping up on them, so
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what San Fran rolls out with this as the final weeks approach here, or the last half of the season.
Yeah,
I don't have anything else for running backs. I just had those two suggestions.
Yeah,
but
that's fair. I just trying to cover some ground, but those are two suggestions that you threw in there that I hadn't considered, but they're good suggestions. So we'll add them to the list, and then we'll move forward for wide receivers. You got anybody you like for wideouts this week?
No one knew that we haven't talked about on this podcast. So the two that I have this week that we have brought up in the past, one would be Devin Duvernay from the Ravens, as he's been catching a lot of football passes from Lamar, which is really good to see.
And
then
running.
Garrett
He
and
got a
running,
rushing
yes.
touchdown last week too.
Oh yeah, because everyone's doing those jet sweeps around. Like it seems like every football game you watch, somebody's doing it.
Yeah.
Like at least twice a game. So
Why
and
not?
it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Those guys are quick. I might as well use them when they have their speed and their legs, because that's the only reason why you drafted them.
Yep. And you're a
So-
defensive coach, so like defensively, when you have to go up against a team that runs a lot of jet sweeps, what does that do to you? Like you got to make adjustments, right?
Yeah, well, you also do your zone read. So if they're in man, it's a good matchup, right? So if they see where people are lining up and press, then you could probably run it easily because you just need a helmet on a helmet. But yeah, and the next guy would be Garrett Wilson, which we've talked about in the past too. So if he's probably not available, but he's also someone that you could start this week because like 5 teams on buys, there's a lot of wide receivers out there, and if you're in a PPR league like myself, you need to have 3 wide receivers in your core. So someone to look at. But we've talked about him, I think week 2. Like we're on week 9, so it's not someone new to the list of receivers.
Yeah, but I mean Elijah Moore is not doing anything there. He's unhappy. He's not getting the ball. Zach Wilson looks absolutely brutal as a quarterback, but I think you're right. He's the number 1 guy. So Garrett Wilson, you got to look at him, and any number 1 receiver on a team is worth consideration for sure. But I want to throw in a guy. Rondale Moore's on the rise. So look at him, but we have talked about him before, like you said. But Josh Palmer, someone we haven't talked about a lot. I drafted him early in the year, thinking that if one of the wideouts from the Chargers got hurt, he would be a good asset to have. And those Charger wideouts have been hurt on and off. And Josh Palmer's been given some opportunity, hasn't made a lot of it, but now both the starting wide receivers for the Chargers are hurt. And Josh Palmer's the number 1 guy to look at, other than the tight end, I think, in this offense. Long term, probably not a big play, but this week, I would say Josh Palmer is a good pickup. I stumped you with that one because Mike Williams is out. I think he's on IR. Like he'll be out for a while.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I was just on mute there as I was doing some clicking. But yeah, he's taken in my league, and I think the last time I looked, he was in the 70 percentile roster on the Yahoo Sports app. So he's definitely has been on people's vision for some time. So it's good that you still bring him up because it's not like everybody knows about him, right?
Yeah.
Or the situation in the Chargers.
Yeah, he's available in my league because I dumped him out because I got sick of watching him, not do what he should be doing. But now his opportunity just got bigger. So I think for temporarily, I think he'd be okay. Really funny conversation that you and I had last week about tight ends. Greg Dulcich, I think he's going to be a hot tight end going forward, even though we don't like Broncos. And they're on a bye this week. But Dulcich is consistently putting up numbers from the tight end spot since he's been a starter 3 weeks in a row. So even though they're on a bye this week, that's your number 1 get if you can get him. I couldn't get him because someone was ahead of me in the waiver picks because I've been winning, by the way. I'm back from the dead. I'm 4-4 now, and so is most of my league. There's only 2 guys with a better record than me in my league, so I've been churning this waiver wire. I'm making a comeback. I couldn't get Dulcich. So I went for Evan Engram from Jacksonville. And I was tossing and turning on Sunday morning at 5:30. So I got up for a little while to watch some of the Jaguars game in Denver. I turn on the TV. The first play is Evan Engram catching a touchdown. I thought, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to try to go back to sleep. So I went back to bed knowing that my tight end came through for me. He's number 13 in the league overall. So I would say Evan Engram is getting some targets and people should look at him from the Jaguars.
Didn't Dolce also get a touchdown in that game?
Greg Dulcich, I don't think he did get a touchdown, but he got about 80 yards receiving and a lot of targets.
Yeah.
So he is a good guy. He's been getting touchdowns in his other games, but I mean, if he's going to get production without getting touchdowns, that's a tight end that I want. So look at him for future, but again, he won't help you this week because he's on a bye. Okay.
The one tight end that I have is
Yeah.
because of the injury to Andrews, right? So Isaiah Likely from the Ravens is someone that potentially could catch the football. Lamar there's been jokes about him throwing outside of the hash marks. So the tight ends usually play inside the hash marks or traditional tight ends. So maybe Likely would be likely pick for you this week.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with Mark Andrews or how hurt he is. He looks kind of hurt, and I think it's multiple injuries, a shoulder and a knee. So Likely's a rookie. He looks very good, looked great in preseason. I thought they'd be using him more because they like two tight ends in Baltimore, but they haven't been utilizing him until Andrews has been injured. So yeah, pick this guy up. Moving forward, who knows how involved he'll be, but we're always desperate for tight ends, and it looks like this week is a good one to pick some up on the waiver wire. And the other thing is Tyler Conklin is back. He's caught a touchdown again, and the Jet. Okay, so I mean, there you go. Like, wow, who wouldn't want that?
He was on my team. I listened to myself. I picked somebody else last week, dumped him, and then I was watching football and shook my head after he caught the second touchdown. One touchdown is okay. That's not a bad move when you drop somebody, but when they score two touchdowns, you kind of say, am I really listening to myself correctly here? Or should I just kept listening to myself and kept the same guy for the whole entire year since it's a bag of garbage for tight ends? Like, why am I juggling around a bag of garbage? Like, it's just, I should have just kept him. It was a mistake on my part. Sometimes I think you get ahead of yourself and you start thinking too much of how you could have the best roster. I saw that Hurts from Cincinnati was available, and I was like, you can't go wrong with Jamar Chase being kind of like on IR on that team, but they still got a very solid wide receiver core with Higgins and Boyd. So maybe Conklin was a bad fall off. Who knows? I'm just going to run with Hurst for the rest of the year unless they got to buy at some point between now and the end of the season, and I have to look somewhere else. But I'm sick of tight ends. It's a bag of garbage, and that's all you can get with that position at the moment. So
that's why I invested in Kelsey, because I didn't want this nightmare. This was my nightmare last season. Even Pitts this week. I mean, he's been horrible all season. Like, after about 8 weeks, that's enough for you to want to give up on the guy. And then last week he catches a touchdown, and it's just, you just have to throw your hands in the air because tight end is just such a puzzle.
Hey, what do you think about defense this week before we wrap up? And we also have the Covenant kickers, which I told the audience that I would have a couple of picks for them too.
Okay, good. I didn't do kickers because I was leaving that for you. My pick for defense this week, coming off of a bye, is the Kansas City Chiefs. They are facing Tennessee. They are on their backup quarterback. And all you have to do if you're playing Tennessee is stop Derrick Henry, which isn't easy, but they don't have anything else. They don't have any receivers. They don't throw to the tight end. They've got Malik Willis, the backup QB, playing. They're just going to hand it off over and over and over again. So I like the Chiefs.
Nice. The team I'm going to suggest, the Dolphins. I think they're playing the Chicago Bears, which has Fields playing as well as other great football players. But I think it's going to be a good waiver option, considering that there are some defenses on buys this week that could be that are needed. So it's another option, not to keep them for the whole season. Maybe you can if you have bench room, but the Dolphins for me would be a team to look at.
Well, also they traded for a pass rusher linebacker. Miami, they beefed up their defense. So yeah, that's a good pick. Go with that. And then I'm going to leave kickers to you.
Okay, 2 kickers. We've talked about this man before. The Pats kicker, Nick Foltz. He's available. I think he's number 2 in the league right now for kicking field goals. He's not rostered in many, but he's someone to take a look at. I find with kickers, you just got to look to see who's leading the league, and if there's somebody in the top 5, you kind of pick them up because that's it. And back is on one of my favorite kickers in the NFL is Prater. Party Man Prater playing for Arizona. The guy still has a leg, still can do some production. He's kind of fallen off over the last 2 years, but he's available in many leagues, and he's in the number 5th spot for all time kicking for season total. So go for Prater if you need him, and maybe we'll come back to kickers in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you. Looking for consistency. We all want consistency, right? So getting those top guys, if they're available in your leagues, that's the way to go. I mean, any kicker can have a great week to week, but we are looking for some kind of consistency in this game. So those are good suggestions for sure.
Nice. All right, Sean, I got to get going, but thanks so much for taking the time. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and good luck this week.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Thanks for watching the Fantasy Football Game Plan podcast. Need coaching on your lineup? Drop us a line and we'll discuss your dilemma.